Welcome to Inside the Chamber. I'm Nikki Anderson, the President and CEO of the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce. Today, our show will focus on the city of Naperville. Our community has been lucky enough to continue to grow and provide solid business community, strong services, and schools, and endless opportunities. Join me as we chat with key city leaders and learn what lies ahead for the city of Naperville.
Inside the Chamber is brought to you by presenting sponsor, Naperville Bank and Trust.
Thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I consistently hear from people in and around the community about what is Naperville doing right? Because with all the challenges that we seem to hear about surrounding communities, or I guess maybe state, we always seem to rise to the top doing something right. So, Christine, I'm going to start with you. Tell me a little bit about economic development and what you're most proud of.
Well, the city of Naperville has always been pretty progressive when it comes to economic development, and our city council has always sort of operated with a laissez-faire. It's very market-driven. But I think the biggest, probably the biggest differential with Naperville is our great housing, our schools are so exceptional, our low crime, all of those things that make it the place where workers want to work. And an employer knows that if they open in Naperville, they can hire the best and the brightest because they'll want to live here. So it's that whole where you want to live, you want to work, and you want to play. And so I think that's always kind of set us apart.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, former leaders in our town took chances. And, back in the day, before we had the Riverwalk, someone was saying, hey, let's put some bricks by the river. And people were like, what?
Yeah.
So you take some chances and they work hard, and all of a sudden you create a magical place. And they did, but we've also been very blessed with a really diverse base of industry and institutions, with the college and the hospital and I-88 corridor, and so we've had this very, very diverse job base that has enabled Naperville to consistently grow and support their local economy. So it's a special place, and having a river run through our town didn't hurt either.
Yeah, right. Yeah, somebody was thinking when they planned that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think for businesses coming in from the city standpoint, one of the best things we can do is almost be invisible to them. And what I mean by that is really not throw up any roadblocks or barricades, help them with the development process, provide them no surprises as they come in and open up for business. And I think we've done a great job of that, particularly during 2017, which was a year that surprisingly we set records for permits and new developments.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about jobs, and Christine, the importance of a great community just draws employers here because they know people will want to work here and live here. We hear a little bit about the job market, it being tough, but it doesn't seem like we have a problem here. It seems like jobs are they're not sparse. You can find.
Yeah, Naperville has consistently had a lower unemployment rate than our surrounding communities. That's true, and I think that goes to our diverse business market.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have issues. We still have challenges. I think every mayor in the United States struggles to keep the younger generation stay put in their community, and that's an important part of our workforce. The Chamber's Workforce Development Initiative last year, I think, addresses that, and something that I'll be working with you guys on to try to solve that problem. But you're right. We've been very fortunate because I think that innovation seems to follow this town. Mm-hmm. And or maybe our town creates it, I think is probably a better way of putting it. And that attracts businesses, and employees then move here, and it's this cycle.
Right. Well, and I guess that's a great question, too, is the millennials, right? Or as I like to say, the next generation of leaders. Yeah. And has there been thought about what we're doing as a community to bring those, those future leaders out from the city and bring them back here to Naperville?
Yeah, it happens organically when they have children because our school system is so great. But when we miss that 23 to 30-year-old group of workers, and that's an important group. And so, yeah, we need to think about that. Having places that this group of workers likes to work at, outdoor spaces, the Smart Park, JC's Park that we've been working on, another chamber initiative that you had led, and places where they like to entertain themselves, shopping, dining, and certainly our restaurant district has been a huge part of what they deem as being a neat place to
The mayor really points out we're unique in a suburban community that has an urban flair to it. So if you look at whether it's our downtown or up along Freedom Plaza, that area, Freedom Common, we really do have a little bit of that urban feel to it. So I think, and a lot of kids are finding opportunities, places to live in the suburbs, and as the mayor points out, it's that 8 years of experience. Now they're married, they have 1 or 2 children, and companies don't want to lose them. So we look at satellite offices. What we're seeing a lot of now, offices here in Naperville, and they keep offices in Chicago. And sometimes they're bigger in Chicago, smaller here, or larger here with a satellite small office in Chicago. And we're playing off that. We see that as a true advantage, and I think Naperville can continue to grow that segment, the satellite office.
Yeah, one of the big advantages we have is obviously the rail line from the satellite office standpoint, and for 2018, one of the more significant developments that we're going to be going through is going to be the Fifth Avenue development. So a lot of great opportunities there. Provides us the opportunity to really kind of start from a blank slate, which we are. And whenever you start from a blank slate, you can address kind of those needed areas, and one of those really relates to the millennials.
I think, too, what I hear about from millennials is what's great about the city is they walk everywhere.
Yeah, it's walkable.
Right? So as we look at this potential project, which I'd love to talk about, we're looking at kind of this walking downtown with the amazing restaurants that we have, and then I think that is something that potentially could be created. One of the
shortfalls that we have that I think we're starting to address now is housing, and specifically with the millennials. But I mean, we need to look at that and improve that housing stock and that inventory so that it's more attractive for their lifestyles, and we are. I think that's coming next.
Yeah,
and so that'll be an important part of it.
So Christine, we always, at our chamber board meetings, we always look to you to tell us what's going on in Naperville. So are there any exciting projects that you can talk about that the city would like to, residents would like to know about?
An ongoing effort with all of us is, and I should probably predicate that with the Chamber of the City and the Naperville Development Partnership, really work off each other really, really well. And so I think that's kind of a special amenity that a lot of communities don't really have, the ability to really work together. So I think some of the things that we're seeing, East Ogden Avenue has long been an initiative, and we're seeing some new developments coming in out there. So we did, the Andes has become sort of the place to go on, whatever weather. It's the place to go for frozen custard. And we're seeing Portillo's that did some expansion. The Fair Oaks Ford property now, which is a major piece, is coming in for redevelopment. And so we're working very closely with their development team to craft something that's really a positive for that corridor. Gerald Automotive is reinvesting in the property. We have a new development over on that Vequity's rebuilding an entire retail center. So we're seeing a lot there. Things like the Aldi's moving into the fresh market down south. All of the Freedom Commons has built out. So the city of Naperville is sort of achieving build out, and we're seeing some redevelopment opportunities paralleling with some new development. And the biggest thing in our book is building a sustainable community. And they say it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And once a community hits build out, which Naperville has always been in a growth, So once we hit build out, how we build out, how we're done, what our makeup is as far as commercial and residential is very important to the future sustainability of the economics of the community. So we work very closely on making sure that we have all the stakeholders at the table to make these decisions.
That's awesome. What do you see as city manager, maybe some challenges with bringing in businesses, or is there?
You know what? There are always challenges, but there are never any that we can't overcome. Obviously, once you're built out and you're not working from cornfields, it becomes a little more difficult because you will get some square pegs and all you have available are round holes. But I think we've been very good and very creative in working with Naperville Development Partnership to find what may not be perfect, but something that we can make perfect. Because the one thing about Naperville is, particularly from a retail standpoint, everybody wants to be here. We have fabulous demographics. We're known as a shopping destination. We don't just serve our own community. We serve a great circle of surrounding communities as well.
Mayor, what do you think?
I think that, I certainly agree with what's been said, but I think one of the challenges moving forward is we need to make sure that our city is set up, our infrastructure is ready to support the next generation of businesses. And so technology, we need to make sure that that's prepared, and we are currently doing a study at the city, expect a report soon from a company to advise us on this. But I mean, beyond that, we need to be innovative and make sure that these companies that we don't even know what they look like today are going to be attracted to Naperville for the quality of our community in terms of being able to do business there successfully. So that'll be a challenge. It's something we're working on, and I'm sure that we're going to be known for a great place for the next generation of businesses to locate.
And that's the reason that we'll ultimately bring millennials out here, right? And I think to your point too, we don't know what business is going to look like in 10, 20 years. I've been reading a lot about, when, well, now it's Apple. Apple is looking for a new place. And maybe this is a silly question, but does our community look to something like that, or is that more big Chicago, big business?
It really depends on what their needs are. If they're looking for a 100-acre campus, we don't have 100 acres.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So,
speaking of cornfields and build out,
Right, yeah.
But we do offer that support staff. So when you look at Chicago, Chicago is comprised of the Chicago metro area. And that's where, going back to, it becomes very interesting in how we can support each other. So when we reached out to, was it Amazon that was doing the first one?
Yeah.
And they said, partner with Chicago. So they may look for that urban center, but they're also looking for the resources that come from around. So Chicago kind of can't do it without suburbs, and we can't do it without Chicago remaining strong. So it's very symbiotic. But we pursue quite a few projects, but again, it depends on the size and the scope of whether it's a realistic bid or not.
Yeah. Great. And we're going to talk more. We'll be right back.
Naperville Bank and Trust has the expertise, knowledge, and experience to help you reach your business goals.
We would prefer to work with somebody like Naperville Bank and Trust. They're engaged in the community, they're able to help meet our financial needs, they understand us as a business.
They provide all the tools that you would ask that we as a growing business need of a bank. Most importantly, to me, it's a great personal relationship we have with Tom and John and our bankers.
It was the best thing we could have done in banking. And banking can be very cold. What the bank brings to us is that warm feeling when you come into the bank and people say, "Hi, Greg."
It's about being part of the community again, about being a name again, about having credit for who your business is instead of just being a number.
Naperville Bank and Trust. Bring it home.
what I'd love to talk about next is anything in the community or anything going on in our community that maybe we should know about or that we're hearing about, but now is an opportunity to learn a little bit more about.
Yeah, probably the biggest thing is the Fifth Avenue redevelopment project.
I'm not familiar.
This is a project that, like, for over a decade, leaders have been trying to get launched. And it hinged on a couple of pieces that were critical pieces of this area. And the city now has control over those pieces. And so finally we're in a position to be able to really do a comprehensive look at this whole area. And there's just an enormous opportunity to improve this. Really, we talk about the walkability of downtown, provide some housing that's current, that might attract a different type of user. And really provide amenities to the people up in our north the neighborhoods.
Right.
And as we've talked about so many times, is just that whole halo effect. When you invest so much money in an area, the effect it has in the neighborhoods, the effect it has on the East Ogden Avenue area, and even North Washington Street corridor. I think we'll see some benefit from it. Yeah. So it's very exciting. One of the largest projects that potentially that we've ever had.
Right.
Yeah. When we think we're creating, a lot of people talk about, well, is it going to compete with the downtown and that? The Fifth Avenue area in itself right now with Fifth Avenue Station and the train and all that has its own sort of cachet. And we think it can be its own destination that interacts. They're complementary. So people who might work there or live there will all feel kind of connected with the college there and with the downtown, and that goes back to sort of that urban. And as the mayor said, going north onto Ogden, that will spill over. But you look at places like the West Loop or Fulton Market area, and they sort of reinvent themselves. Now we're not looking at that scope and scale, but it's the opportunity to create something that will live a long time. And I think there's a lot of great input, and everybody's being heard, and I think the more people share their ideas, the better off this development will ultimately be for the city in the long term for the city.
Yeah, you look at, she just mentioned the West Side and the West Loop. That's a really great example of how that halo effect that we're talking about, how it affects the area beyond where McDonald's moved to, or beyond the United Center. I mean, Madison Street has just had a huge amount of changes there, and I think that we'll see the same thing on East Ogden Avenue. We're already seeing changes there, but I think this is going to help boost it. And I think some of the current changes that we're seeing, the uptick in business there, has been because of the attention that's been spent on the Fifth Avenue.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, too, the needs and demands of people are changing and what they want. And I do think it's kind of going back to people want more walkability.
Right.
And I think something like that, I would even envision like some way that you could walk to Ogden Avenue, right?
Sure. They're looking at that.
They're looking at
just
that
like
too.
I think that would be very exciting. And again, as we look to bring that next generation back to Naperville, what matters to them, and I hear that ability to walk to where you're going.
You talk about live, work, play. I mean, if people are living at this new development, they will be walking to downtown, supporting these businesses in downtown. So I don't look at it as competition. I look at it as enhancing our customer base.
And the multi-generational, we're talking today about millennials, but we also talk regularly about seniors, that baby boomers as they age and they don't want the big house anymore, but they don't want to leave Naperville. So what we're seeing is a lot of conversation about multi-generational housing in there, because seniors want to see kids around, and kids like the balance of the different age groups. And I think that's really, again, speaks to kind of the direction of Fifth Avenue and how it could develop.
From a city manager perspective, when you look at a project like that, is it exciting, or is it like, ooh?
It's tremendously exciting. It's a little bit different from plowing under the cornfields, but not that much, because right now it is just a sea of asphalt.
Right.
And you look out there and you look at kind of the size and scope and say, you know what, we can absolutely do better.
Yeah.
And the possibilities are endless.
And it has that public-private, which a lot of people don't realize. They see a private developer maybe looking at the design, but there are so many components of this project, whether it's stormwater, whether it's the commuter parking, whether it's the open space and walkability, that will all bring, that public-private has to collaborate to create something really spectacular.
I've heard a lot of talk about green space, and I think when we talk about Chicago versus, what we have here, I've heard a lot of talk about green space. Is that something that you all think about when you're looking at a project like this?
I think it's going to be an important part of it. This is the great part about, as Doug just mentioned, right now we just have a bunch of asphalt.
Right.
So it's not green at all. I think we have an opportunity to bring some amenities like some green space. I think we certainly have an opportunity to solve some problems in that area, stormwater management. So along with providing really a beautiful and historic type of a project, I think we can also solve problems and bring some amenities. Yeah.
I know that there is a company, I believe it's Ryan Companies, that is actually hosting, and correct me if I'm wrong, opportunities for the community to come and chat with them and talk about maybe their vision and what they'd like to see. Am I accurate?
Yeah, the Ryan Companies, from a project standpoint, I can't think of another one that the city has done that has had as much public input and will continue to have public input. And the public wants to have input on it, which we think is fantastic. But monthly public staff meetings, we're in the process of getting the last few members for steering committee, but subject matter, getting subject matter experts and breaking out meetings there separately. One of the nice things for this process is, we're not in a hurry. It's absolutely more important to get it right because it is going to be something that is going to last for, generations.
Right.
So we want to get it right. If that slows things down a little bit, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think we're very well positioned. I think Ryan Companies have been doing a great job so far.
They have been. The neighborhoods are really engaged, and that was a critical part of this, is getting everybody communicating and working together and saying, hey, what are your concerns? What are your interests? And then now that will start to shape a development. And I think that's going to be really important to have all that information before we start.
I think that's what I heard is one of the things that was important even to this company is to make sure that they hear from the residents. That was really important.
It's really what they're known for. Right? One of the reasons that they were selected is because they engage so much with the surrounding communities and find out what the interests are before they plow through and just build what they want to build.
Right. So if residents are watching right now and want to get involved or want to learn more, do they just go to the city website, City of Naperville website?
That's the best place to start, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And all the meetings are public meetings. We have working groups that are specific to like traffic or land use and things like that, but we also have a steering committee, but all the meetings are open to the public.
Great.
Yeah.
As we're talking about developing property and what's next, let's talk a little bit about retail. I'm hearing a lot about kind of the changes that are happening in retail. Can you share a little bit about that?
It's interesting because I think everybody's sort of looking for that crystal ball. What is the future of retail? And of course, the death of the brick and mortar stores are sort of touted out there as the apocalypse of retail. Yet we continue to see amazing growth. So, for each of these retail centers, they are changing the face of them a little bit. So, for instance, on Aurora Avenue, which wraps around Route 59, there's a center there that some of the vacancies are being filled by entertainment. Things like Funtopia is under construction there. And so what people have found is for the brick and mortar, for the street stores, you really have to have, it has to be experiential.
Right,
and so people still want to get out. And what we saw this past, over the holiday season, sales being pretty much through the roof, and Naperville being tagged as probably one of the highest retail sales for the holiday season. Now, Naperville's retail sales, the actual retail sale, is almost $3.5 billion. And we don't have a regional mall. It's not Naperville. So you look at that, and we look at how that affects our budget and the importance of it. So, for instance, Nikki, when you go buy a car, that sales tax that you pay actually comes off your property tax bill. If you look at the amount of money the city collects in sales tax versus property tax, the more sales tax, the less property tax is needed. So that whole shop local. But what's going to be interesting is this whole changing face. There will be more online, but there'll be a lot of online retailers that feel they need a brick and mortar store. So I think something like the Main Street Fairness Act, which the city has supported, the Chamber has supported, and the Naperville Development Partnership has supported, will be an important going forward to make sure that our budget stays solid as more people shop online. And people say, well, if they're shopping online, why do they pay this tax? Well, the trucks are still on our roads. They're still using our community services to make those deliveries. And so I think in a fairness, that needs to be settled up. But stay tuned, because I think you're going to see a lot of different retail entertainment type of mixes.
Exactly right. We're starting to see retails convert from just shopping to experience.
Yeah.
And these experiences are really important, whether it be restaurants,
right,
or it can be activities.
Right.
And so it's changing the face of what retail looked like. And again, I think Naperville is right there on that cutting edge of that change. And so, you know, we really do have a special community, because for whatever reason, people have taken chances, businesses, and sort of led all these different changes in our business environment. It's fun to watch, and it's fun. It's a fun place to live and enjoy it.
Before we say so long to our viewers, is there anything that you'd like to share, something that you want people to pay attention to, something that you feel like residents need to know, or anything that you're really excited about that's happened this past year?
Well, a lot of exciting things have happened. We've filled a lot of empty buildings. We have a lot of exciting projects going forward. I think my biggest thing is really this is not a time for us to sit back.
Yeah.
You know, other communities are working hard and have been for decades, you know, to attract businesses, to attract residents, to be that cutting edge community and forward thinking community. And we've been very blessed to have ridden a pretty long wave of expansion, and that expansion money has funded our government. And it's not a time to sit back, because we're a changed community. We've built out to our borders. We don't want to be complacent.
Wonderful.
So.
Well, thank you all so much for being here today. I think this was so insightful, and I'm looking forward to the future. I think there's a lot of great things happening, thanks to all of you. Thank you for joining us for Inside the Chamber. We hope you found the information in today's program valuable. Please join us again for our monthly program. And in the meantime, remember, when you're looking to shop or dine, think Chamber and visit naperville.net to support the Chamber of Commerce and our business community.